No, Nigeria and Afghanistan are possibly the two most corrupt countries.
But this particular president is actually not corrupt.
I'm not going to demand any apology from anybody. What I'm demanding is the return of assets.
From this day forward, it's going to be only America first. America first.
The intellectual capacity of the president is protozoan.
Can you really lay out the red carpet for someone who has talked about grabbing women by the
I think about a man who thinks it's okay to go and grab.
Tout le monde nous disait que c'était impossible.
Everyone said it was impossible.
Mais ils ne connaissaient pas la France.
They didn't know France.
The Kenyan Supreme Court has now given reasons why it invalidated the re-election of President Uhuru Kenyatta, saying the Electoral Commission failed to verify results and there was evidence of irregularities and illegalities in the vote counting. There was, however, an uneasy calm in Kenya as the country counts down to the October 26 rerun presidential election amidst protest by the opposition calling for the resignation as well as prosecution of top officials of the Electoral Commission. On Global Arena this week, we're turning our attention back to the Kenya presidential election and the matters arising. I am Nifemi Oguntoye. Thanks for joining us. Welcome back. The Kenyan police has dispersed protesters in front of the Electoral Commission office as controversy continued over who should conduct the fresh presidential election. Police shot tear gas after shoving broke out between opposition supporters who demanded the resignation of top officials of the Electoral Commission and ruling party supporters who want no change to the electoral body.
As long as Chiloba is still in office, NASA is still going to ensure that we have more of these protests, peaceful protests, to come here at the IBC and push for the resignation of Chiloba and the 11th office.
The opposition coalition's parliamentary group charged in a statement that members of an outlawed gang had been brought to the demonstration to cause chaos and harm opposition leaders. According to top NASA leaders, their security was withdrawn just hours before their planned demonstrations at the Electoral Commission headquarters in Nairobi.
We are equally dismayed by the decision by Jubilee to withdraw the security detail assigned to our presidential candidate, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, and his running mate, His Excellency Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka.
We're joined now by political scientist and lawyer Dr. Femi Badejo, who for almost 2.5 decades served the United Nations in Somalia, Kenya, Liberia, Guinea-Bissau, and Sudan. He is the author of Raila Odinga, an enigma in Kenyan politics. In this concluding interview, he sheds more light on the developments in Kenya. Let's begin to talk about the landmark Supreme Court decision for a continent known for sit-tight leadership, where the judiciary is even often perceived as an appendage of the executive. No one would have correctly predicted the decision of the Supreme Court. But do you think that this will have a ripple effect on the continent as being postulated by many?
Oh, I have no doubt in my mind that even the Americans are jealous that at least they can learn something from Africa. It's not a question of just drive everything under the carpet, maintain the economy, ensure that Wall Street does not fritter in challenging. You can look at the history of how Al Gore was pushed aside and everybody said just quickly accept. You can come to how Hillary was pressured into say it that you accept, you know. Now, here is somebody that they all descended on. Obama, all of them descended on him, and the guy said, this is not fair. You guys have been talking about rule of law, you know, and he initially said he wasn't going to go to court because of what you said. He had been through it before. You know, he won clearly in 2007. What happened? They quickly went to swear Kibaki in overnight. Then the Constitution says you cannot swear in that way, or else Uhuru would have been sworn in by now. And then you start talking about... so I do hope that the judgment... we must be fair. Judges in our country have made some significant efforts, but none has gone as far as dealing with a presidential level. That's why Kenya has beaten us to it, and we must gladly look at that jurisprudence and see how the judges can really be independent and not be looking for what money they can get into their bank accounts, as has been many of the cases here.
But how realistic is Nigeria duplicating this? Consider the speed. This election was held on the 8th of August. The Supreme Court started hearing, I think it was on 28th of August. The 1st of September, they had a verdict. How can we duplicate that in Nigeria?
You see, that's what I was saying about the fundamental role. In my book, I spoke about the fact that there are only 5 people who have made a difference in that country. And Raila is a strong one amongst those 5. Raila was one of those who pushed for a new constitution, which they got in 2010. And that constitution details the steps. You know, if the election is not challenged, within 14 days, the new president is to be sworn in. If the election is challenged, the court will have to give its ruling by this time.
The AU mission led by Thabo Mbeki, John Kerry was there, headed the Carter Center mission. The former president of Ghana, John Mahama, the EU observer, had excellent things to say about the election. But it looked as if all of them couldn't have lied. It appears like what happened at the point of coalition and what Raila calls internet fraud. What attention do you see Africa paying? Because if Kenya could have spent over $500 million on an election and just at the point of coalition or collision, something goes wrong, what lessons are there?
Let me start by saying that I have a lot of respect for Thabo Mbeki. Somebody who has been involved in the struggle for liberation in his country and led his country very, very well. And he is one of our respected elder statesmen. But people make mistakes. You know, perhaps he may need to say clearly to the world that he never thought that hacking had left America for Kenya. After all, it was in the US that they are now crying about did Russia hack or it did not hack, and committees set up on that and what have you. The EU election observers are now saying, well, there were too many companies that were involved and we couldn't have seen some of what those companies did. Why come to talk when you could not have seen? Thabo Mbeki said he did not have a mandate to investigate. It is true. You don't have a mandate to investigate, but you could then have put that on the table that, yes, the people lined up and we saw everything, but we cannot say anything about the transmission.
According to Thabo Mbeki, he commended the Kenyan people on conducting the election in a peaceful environment. John Kerry says the Kenya people, he also commended the Kenya people in conducting the election peacefully. John Mahama, who chaired the Commonwealth Observer Group, says the Kenya elections across 6 levels of government has been credible, fair, and inconclusive. The EU observer took it to another level by commending the role of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission.
Actually, all of them commended the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. You just picked different aspects. Thabo Mbeki's AU Commission even issued a statement on August 14, well after everybody had come to the conclusion that we want stability, not justice, not peace. And so the best thing is this Raila is a perennial, so let's just move on. So coming from that orientation, and what the main lesson is, do we need international election observers? Myself and a Ghanaian friend are just putting something together on that. That it's a waste that people go in. Of course, every election teaches new things. If they had thought about Nigeria's 1983 election, when it was landslide, I was, commentator for that elections on Radio Lagos. We saw the crowds, we went around, we saw everything, and then at the end of the day, Ofonagoro, on using the NTA, manipulated everything at the collation center, and they won landslide. So what has Kenya done? The IEBC in Kenya has only rendered what Ofonagoro did in 1983 that brought the Buhari coup, if you cast your mind back to that, just using technology now, that yes, you can collate at the different centers. That's your problem.
But don't you think, you mentioned international observers earlier, don't you think the absence of international observers would inspire impunity if there's nobody watching?
Now, the question, I can ask you many questions. Tell me any election in which it is international observers that has made any difference. Is it in Gambia? Or is it in Nigeria? It is the people who must protect their own votes. So if you support civil society to be vociferous, the most crucial thing is finding people of integrity to be heads of national election commissions. People of integrity. It is not the number of international observers who pretend to know what is going on. After 2007, they decided that they must stay in country long before, during, and after. They did that in Kenya. But none of them spoke about Chris Msando, the guy in charge of the ICT that was killed on the eve of the elections. None of them tried to even address the mind into a possibility. I'm not saying that he was killed by the people, but the opposition side is claiming that they cut his hand in order to use his finger, and that finger had rotted by the time election took place. It was not possible to now stop the process. So even after they had declared the president, results kept coming in.
Let's also look at the position of Raila Odinga. He has threatened now to boycott the rerun election if there are no legal and constitutional guarantees. He wants the Electoral Commission to audit the technology used to conduct August election and give some sort of assurance that it will be transparent. Is he asking for something that is not measurable? How do we measure that this has taken place?
Well, I hope that the Kenyans can meet among themselves and dialogue on how best to assuage all feelings, including that of President Uhuru Kenyatta. Because even today in Parliament, he still said that he respects the Supreme Court, but he disagrees with them. He called the judges all sorts of names, after initially stating that...
But he preached peace, and many people also feel that Raila is not only the hero in this election. Kenyatta also played a prominent role by telling them that your neighbors will remain your neighbors. Ensure that I don't agree with the judgment, but I have to succumb to the law. Wouldn't you celebrate him for that?
No, I will celebrate him for that if he had stopped at that. That was the very first statement he made as the decision was made. Go on YouTube and listen to subsequent statements he made.
He only said that 6 people have overturned the will of majority of the people.
No, they were not left to him. It's actually 4 because 2 supported him. So it is 4 people. And what did he call those 4? You tell me now. No, what did he call them? Thugs, crooks. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of the country.
He must have said that in Kenyan language.
No. Go and re-listen to Al Jazeera, the second statement after the court decision. I heard it with myself. Then he said quite a number in YouTube when he was talking to the Kenyan, his party's elect governors, elect senators, and whatever and what have you.
So he was quoted to have said recently that the Jubilee Party has majority at the parliament, and that even if Odinga wins, he will be impeached in 2 or 3 months. Well, is that also possible?
That would be democracy. That would be democracy. If Odinga gets there and he cannot hold the place together and whatever, and he's impeached, his vice president would take over. If what you are saying, because I didn't listen to this, if what you are saying he said is the truth, that's great. If the spirit is we can share power, not that power must rest in one place. If the spirit is there, if Raila, it's not that Raila is not Kenya.
Unlike him, Raila says he's not ready to share power this time. Not like what happened in 2008.
But you didn't listen to the context. You didn't listen to the context. As they were in court, there were overtures that the opposition claimed. I don't know if it is fake news, because Donald Trump has now taught us that you guys, but there were said to be overtures that, look, instead of going through all this in court, let's sit together as brothers and have a government of national unity. That's what he said he was not going to be part of. And if you are in his shoes, you thought you won election in 2007, the whole world forced you into being prime minister to somebody who lost, in your view, and perhaps possible to be documented. The same thing repeated in 2017, and then it's whatever. So you have to put these things into context. Is Uhuru wanting to share power as Raila as president and he prime minister? Of course, there is even no prime minister in their current constitution. But let's say that they can work it out like Kofi Annan and Kufuor worked it out, and Adeniji worked it out the last time around, Ambassador Adeniji. Is that what he's saying? Or he's saying, I will be on top? Let's repeat 2007. I think the people should be allowed to decide. The people of Kenya should be allowed to decide in a transparent, credible elections.
So we have a press release here signed by 6 former presidents of Africa: Nigeria, Tunisia, Ghana, Tanzania, Botswana, and South Africa. And they're calling for peace. I'm sure that they are not forgetting in a hurry what transpired in 2007, 2008 in Kenya. Beyond the press release, what do you expect government to do, and even the African continent to do at this time, to ensure that this rural election do not end up in violence?
Well, there is nothing that would be as good as transparency. Whatever, and I think the African elder statesmen called attention to that. They called for support to the IEBC to ensure that it transmits exactly the will of the Kenyan people. If that is transparently seen by everybody, people will accept the outcome. If the outcome is that Raila has lost, I see no reason why his people will not say, let's go and prepare for next election. If transparently it is shown that Uhuru has lost, and he makes the kind of speech that you are telling me now, why would people go on the streets to kill themselves? But when it is all hushed in secrecy, when electoral observers who I think are no longer necessary, because in spite of the money spent to bring them to Kenya, so many people still lost their lives. A 10-year-old girl on the balcony of her parents' house shot. I'm sure stray bullets. Not that they wanted to kill a 10-year-old. But should we be sponsoring some people to go on safari in order to say, well, that is what we saw then. Whatever the case is, we have said our own. Let them go and handle. Why don't we support them to handle their own affairs very well, empower their civil society, have the world cry on the IEBC if it is looking like it's not being transparent. The argument that myself and a Ghanaian friend are making is that if Mbeki, Mahama, Kerry, the EU, whatever, had hedged their bets, had listened closely to the cry of the opposition that how is it possible that one candidate is like 11% in almost everywhere above the other one? Is this not an algorithm problem, as you guys of today who know technology calls it in? You know, that is enough. Because initially the chairman of the commission said, Kenya, be rest assured, I will not declare any presidential candidate until I have seen all the forms, until the forms 34A and 34B have been accounted for. Let's even forget about all the manipulation that took place with those ones that... but out of 40,000, it was clear that they hadn't even seen over 10,000 from all that was tabled before the court. If they hadn't the courage that those international electoral observers had given them, he would have been more careful. He wouldn't have jumped the gun to move on as he did. That, who cares? The whole world is here. The whole world, the whole of Africa. What is he going to do? You know, Africa has spoken. America, even that we thought supporting him, has spoken. The Europeans, all of them, they have endorsed what I have done. So what is stopping me?
What do you expect to happen? Do you expect this to all end peacefully?
I told you that I am worried, but I'm happy that African elder statesmen who are much more well-connected are equally worried, as evident in the statement they just made, and that perhaps it will be possible to provide the necessary level of support to IEBC before October 17 to ensure that the computer process is not in secrecy, that designated people from all sides can have access and see those results as they are streaming in, and the media focused on the streaming into the computer itself, not on the basis of an algorithm that is just fixed, but genuine coming in and collation. I think those are the things that can be done to save lives. If everything is seen to be transparent, it should be fine.
What lessons are here for the African continent?
I think the main thing is don't make don't elect anybody into electoral commissions with dark spots in their past. We are now hearing some of the ones here after the putting in place of the new chairman, and claims that there had been things in the past. That's not good enough, because you get easily compromised. But if you can be as bold as Jega with your commission and say, you can say whatever you like, we will say it exactly on the basis of what we have seen. And this is not Nigeria. Gambia. The guy in Gambia was very bold at the point of being killed. He had to disappear into one of the embassies there for protection. You know, if we empower civil society in Africa to be more up to guarding their results and not waiting for people who are going to come from Europe and America. How many elections do we go to certify in Europe and America that we think that the solution to our problems is to go bring a Muzungu or an Oyibo man that comes all over the place and says, as far as I can see, everything is perfect and whatever. And then we say, oh yes, after all, it's what fella called Kolo mentality. Nothing other than that.
Dr. Femi Badejo, thank you so much for joining us on Global Arena. And that wraps it this week on Global Arena. The conversation, however, continues on all of our social media handles. You can send your email to galaxytelevision@gmail.com. I am Nifemi Oguntoye. Thanks for being there.